What's up guys, and welcome to this video. Today I will be talking about how a certain book I read, surprisingly enough, changed how I perceive God and understand God, and therefore improved my overall connection with Him, I would say. And this is not in any way an attempt at belittling Him, because that could seem as if that was the case, because this is not a scripture book. This is a completely random book I picked up at the store, but it has really changed how I perceive God in a way that I want to share with others, and I feel compelled in a way to explain this to others, because I think it could be really useful to people. And excuse the kind of tired look, I have school in a bit of time, maybe an hour, but yeah, get straight to it. The overall idea of this book, the book is called, let's just get out of the way, Surrounded by Idiots. It's basically a behavioral analysis guide, and beyond that it's also a driving force analysis guide, really looking at how each behavioral types really act, but beyond that also looking at what drives a person, and importantly here to mention is what they mean by what they do, their intentions. That's what, like, the exact word I'm going to talk about more. So like the overall idea of the book is that if you perceive people without trying to grasp their intentions, you maybe get a skewed picture of who they actually are and what their actual intentions are, which is quite obvious, but how often do you take into account the true intentions of someone in your, even people you love? Like, we can pretty quickly admit that we don't do that very often. And so the question becomes, do we do that with God, and do we do this in scripture? Because much of what is written in scriptures may be symbolic, or in another way a little harder to grasp. And what I wanted to come across, what I wanted to get into especially, was how people, many Christians, have a hard time perceiving many stories or complex scenarios of the Old Testament as uncruel in a sense. And really the point I'm trying to get across here is that in many of these cases, for example, the hardening of Pharaoh's heart, or what else, the killing of the Canaanites, can appear, look at the view, can appear very cruel initially. And when we just read past that, it maybe becomes a problem in a sense, because we instantly think, oh, God is cruel, God commands people to kill. But then we come back to the idea of trying to formulate in a way, because it's a little off the dome action right now. But the idea I'm trying to formulate is that if we don't make an attempt at perceiving people, we can make them out to be what they aren't really, what they don't really initially and intentionally want to be perceived as, or like want to even it's not their intention, is to appear a certain way maybe. And when we apply this method to, or maybe even a principle, you could call it, to scripture, we get this more in-depth and understanding of God. And maybe that can sound a bit belittling of God, because we make God graspable, but I like to say that we don't make him in that sense more graspable. We made the ungraspable, or the impossibly ungraspable being, we moved a step closer to understanding the ungraspable being. And I can't really explain it any better than that, but the thing I'm trying to teach you here is that we need to look beyond the surface. We need to move beyond mere behavioral analysis and mere analysis of word, and read in between lines. You've of course maybe heard this from your English teacher or whatever language you may study mainly, that we have in stories and in fiction, we have to look beyond mere words. We have to dive in between the crevices, say, why does he do that? Why does he hold that mask? What's his true intentions behind these words? And when you do that, you change your whole perception, not only of God in this case, but I wanted to, it's in confrontations and more extreme title to claim that a random book made you closer to God. But in this sense, I also did feel like I could understand people easier. So, for example, if I talk with my mother or classmate, I could sit and listen to them a bit more, which is also something the book kind of promotes. Listening, of course, but that's many psychology books that promote that. But in a sense, I could figure out during the conversation, do they really mean what they say with their words, or do their tone, do their I could pick pieces out from their story and kind of contextualize the whole ideas being expressed, and that's the important thing I want to get across. So I think if you're a Christian, or maybe even a non-believer, that because of these heart complexes, maybe mostly in the Old Testament, could be in the New One too, but if you fall under that category, I strongly advise you to look into the theology of those scenarios, especially kind of try to contextualize and put the pieces together, because again, it could seem very cruel on the surface, and I'm not like an in-depth theologian, or what you call it. I don't really know what you call it, but I'm not aware of the entire details. But I strongly advise you to, if that's the middle ground between you believing in Jesus and not, you should probably try to do this exercise where you contextualize every piece and you ask yourself, is this the true intention trying to come across? Is this a symbolic way of expressing something, or is it literal? And in that way, I believe I can grasp God himself and love a little bit better. It seems kind of egotistical to say I can grasp God, but I don't really know of any other way to put it. So yeah, that would be it. And I felt compelled to kind of go into true nature, even though I think I'm gonna be late for school, but don't really care because school isn't really exciting. So, but that was the video, and I hope you understood the concept and got some knowledge for yourself to use, because why else would you watch a video? But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll probably see you in the next one. Bye.